Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kendar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read the chapter of one of my books and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. on Twitch. And if you want to support me other than buying the book, it's through my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 26 of A Familiar Death. Lamia's scream came through the bedroom door, and Trembor plastered his ears against the skull. He glared at the young wolf seated on the other side of the living room. The tiger that had been with him, attacking the sheep, had vanished in the confusion. The other two who had attacked Rana were in the back of her car. She'd wanted to put the wolf there too, but Marlot had wanted to talk with him. Trembor wanted to shred him to pieces. When the medic arrived, the horse who had been working at his commune's clinic, Lamia, had been in such bad shape the medic hadn't wanted to move her any more than necessary. She and Arana had brought her to the bedroom and hadn't come out yet. Trembor had taken enough. He grabbed the cindy-furred wolf by the collar and lifted him off his feet. Okay, why did you attack her? This close to him, he could see that he was young, only a few years past predation age, but his youth wasn't an excuse for what he'd done. I don't have to tell you anything, the wolf tried for indignant, but ended up sounding whiny. Trevor felt Marlot stand behind him. He shook the wolf he was holding. You attacked a pregnant female. His eyes went wide in surprise, but what he said was, what do I care? She's a sheep. Trevor was ready to slam into the wall, but Marlot placed a hand on his arm. You cared enough to have sex with one, Ramistal, the wolf said. I didn't. I was just curious. Trevor brought the wolf close to his face and sniffed him. There was a strong smell of leather and wool on him. Not what would cling to him after attacking a sheep, but from wearing a sheep hide for days. This was the wolf he'd seen heckled the other day. Is that what this is about? Marlot asked, proving the town you're not actually a sheep too. What's it to you, tail raiser? Trevor shook the wolf. Watch what you say to my wolf. You think I'm scared of you? Everyone knows abominations like you two are nothing but weak males who... He shrieked as Trembor opened his muzzle and moved to his neck. Marlot chuckled. Yeah, my mate is weak enough to lift you, and you can be sure he's weak enough to rip you apart. So, why don't you tell us who put you up to this? It was Bo, the wolf cried. He said I could redeem myself by coming here with him. Trembor closed his mouth and gave Marlot a questioning look. Marlot shook his head. Too short of a name, so it's a nickname. Could belong to a dozen of males around here. What's his actual name? The young wolf shook his head. He'd regained some of his defiance. Trembor made to bite his neck again, but all the wolf did was close his eyes and look away. Ramistal, Marlot said. Just give me his name. It doesn't have to be you who gets punished for this. Punished? The wolf looked at Marlot in astonishment. He saw Trembor's gleaming eyes and recoiled. Trembor closed his muzzle. They needed him to speak. The young wolf calmed a little. Why would I be punished for roughing up a sheep? She's a sheep. No one cares. Trust me, Marlot said. We care. And she isn't just a sheep, Trembor growled. She's a pregnant sheep. She's more than 3 months pregnant. So, Marlot said, your attack on her qualifies as an act of predation on her baby, who is underage. He studied the pale-furred wolf. Do you have any idea what's going to happen to you if it dies as a result of what you did? It's a sheep too. Nobody'll care. I care, Trevor growled. I don't care what this town's going to want to cover, this scent. I'm not going to let that happen. If her baby dies, I'm going to make sure she demands reparation, and I'm going to be the first in line to offer to devour you. The wolf fought to get out of Trembor's grip. You can't do that. She's just a sheep. It was Arana who answered, her voice cold. The law says she can. She came out of the hallway. If Miss Softspot demands reparation, you get eaten. But I just did it to prove I'm not one of them. Yeah, that's really clear now, Trembor said with sarcasm. You're such a predator, going after a pregnant female. I didn't know. Arana, harumph. That's why you're supposed to stalk your prey. She stepped next to Trembor. Let him go. Trembor opened his hand, and the wolf fell to the floor in a heap. He lowered his arm and held them against his body to keep from shaking. The wolf had been getting heavy. I didn't pick her, he said indignant. I had to go along so they'd stop calling me a sheep. Marlot crouched next to him. So, Bo picked her. Her specifically? Why? I don't know. They'd been drinking when they found me. They said I could prove to myself and the town I was a predator like them. I didn't know what they meant until we were driving through the commune. He said that if I killed a sheep, it would prove I wasn't one, because sheeps can't kill. And then he parked in the field and had us follow him until we got to the houses. When you left, he told me to attack the sheep while they kept her busy. He pointed to Arana. So you were in the wheat, close enough to watch us? He had us stay back. I could hear voices. He was closer, so I guess he could see. Marlot frowned. So this Bo was one of her attackers. Which one was he? The youth remained silent. Marlot looked at Arana. Did you get the other two's name? They aren't saying anything, and I'm not familiar enough with this town to know them. You're from here, aren't you? I don't know them. I only know Ramastal because I knew his brother when I was a kid. I don't have a brother. Marlot's hand was around the wolf's neck before he could stop it. He gasped and tried to let go of him. You had a brother. His name was Margelo. He was a caring male, and he made sure the bullies in this town left me alone. Maybe you should ask your parent what this place did to him if you get the chance. Marlot let go of him and shook his head, looking at his hand. In the silence that followed, Trembor noticed that it was completely silent. No screams, cries, or whimpering came from the bedroom. When the door opened, the three of them turned. How is she? Arana asked. She's as well as can be expected under the circumstances, the horse answered. Physically, she has a few superficial cut and has lost a lot of blood due to losing the baby. It wasn't developed enough to survive. Trembor growled, causing her to take a step back, but when she continued, her voice was calm. Emotionally, there's no telling how long it will be until she's over this. You have to understand that in her current state, even once she has healed physically, I can't recommend that she go back to work. It could be a few more months before Marlot cut her off. We don't care about that. We have nothing to do with this place. All I care about is the baby. I need you to put it in a freezer so we can take it with us. Trevor turned to reach for the youth, but Marlot was holding his arm. I'm sorry. Dominic said I can't do that. The parents are the ones who decide what will happen to their baby. They're going to prosecute the killer. Trembor growled, glaring at the wolf, cowering against the wall. He pulled on Marlot's hand, but his wolf wouldn't let go of him. You can check with Miss Softspaw, Marlot told her. She'll agree to it. There was a moment of silence. Then the horse stepped away and the door opened and closed. Arana? Marlot said, can you bring us the freezer box when it's ready? We'll be outside. I'll take care of our killer here, she answered, as well as the enforcer when he shows up and tries to get in my way. Marlot pulled him away toward the front door. Trembor thought about wrenching his arm out of his wolf's grip and ripping the other wolves apart, but Marlot's grip tightened. Trem, he whispered, calm down. Then they were outside. How do you expect me to do that? Trembor asked when Marlot let go of him. He killed a cub, and he isn't much older than one himself. Are you excusing what he did? He glared at his wolf. Marlot didn't look away. Of course not. But Arana will deal with that. Our job is to find Naego's killer. Are they even going to prosecute him? From what you told me about this place, it doesn't sound like the cub will get justice. Marlot sighed. I don't know, Trem. I don't think Arana is going to let them wash this away, but the council has the power. He's the power here. Yes, it is. Look, I agree that what he did is inexcusable, but you must realize that he was used, that Bo set him up. If someone is responsible for the cub's death, it's him. That wolf seems happy enough to go along with it. Trem, You don't know what it's like here. The kind of pressure to conform he is under. I don't know if you remember, but you saw the harassment he suffered. I remember him. I could smell the hide they had him wear. Ramestal would have done anything to make them stop. So this Beau told them this was a way to regain his dignity, and he went along with it. Not because he wanted to kill anyone, but because he'd be able to go back to have him some peace. You wouldn't have gone along with that. I would have. Tremor stared at his wolf. Trem, I spent years here denying who I was. I made myself a mere shadow of who I am because I didn't want anyone to notice I was different. I would have done anything not to end up like Margelo, and yes, that means I would have killed a sheep if that's what it would have taken. Trem, Ramestal is going to be traumatized by the knowledge that he killed a cub. Even if the council buries this, he knows what he did. I think that's enough punishment, don't you? Trembor closed his eyes. He forced himself to go over what he knew. The cubs was mixed breed, predator and prey. The odds of it surviving were so low that every medic who'd make a prediction would say it would die. That it had lived this long was probably some sort of medical aberration. It wasn't going to survive, he whispered to himself, hoping that hearing the word would make them easier to accept. I know how you feel about cubs, Trem, but like you just said, this one wasn't going to survive. His wolf took his hand and squeezed it. If you can take a step back and look at this objectively, you'll see that it's for the best. How can you say that? Tremor replied angrily. Marlot waited, give him time to calm down, to calm himself. Give him time to calm. I'm sorry. His wolf squeezed his hand again. It's okay. This hits closer to your heart than mine. When the medic files her report, the father, whoever it is going to find out about the miscarriage. That means Lamia will no longer be a threat to him, since he already knows she won't talk if she didn't after the first attack. Are we certain he knows about it? Benerick will have talked about us eating the coyote, and that has to have reached the father by now. If we make sure that the medic notes that we took custody of the remains, that shifts whatever plan the father might have had toward Lamia to us. Now we're the ones that can destroy him, not her. And it's best that he look at us and not Lamia. And it's best that you look at us and not Lamia, because of anyone here, we're the ones best equipped to deal with an attack. He paused. Except maybe Arana. You really think this is going to keep her safe? I have to believe the baby's remain is the only threat he will see, and we'll be taking them to Jaxka. Marlot nodded. So we're getting out of here. Finally. Trevor felt better with that knowledge. They'd be able to get back to their lives, take care of their own territories, look for a house, move in together. Won't we have to come back once we have the test result? We shouldn't have to. Officially, it's Arana's case. We can send her the information and she can deal with the rest. Trevor watched as his wolf bit his lower lip. He was hoping that was the case more than knowing for sure. Before he could say something to reassure him, door opened and Arana walked out of the house, carrying a white box with medical symbols on it. A claw cutting flesh, with one drop of blood dripping down. Did the medic give you any trouble? Marlot asked. No. Lamia couldn't insist hard enough for you to have this. As far as she's concerned, this was the worst thing to ever happen to her. Worst thing to happen to her. When the medic told her the damage caused by the miscarriage means she might not be able to have any more cubs, Lamia beamed. I'm worried that she's going to go back to the father, maybe even warn him that you have this. She handed Marlot the box. That's fine. We want him to know. We want him to look at us, not Lamia. You know what? This is dialogue. It would just be her. We want him to look at us, not her. Make sure the medic enters this in her report, too. He might not believe Lamia when she tells him. You'll think he's going to read it? Those things are supposed to be confidential. He's with the council, and that's a commune medic. Very little is confidential here. So, you think the father is part of the family who runs the commune, the Striptails? Marlot shook his head. He isn't that stupid. He'd go for another commune, since no one controls who comes and goes. He'd be anonymous there. Just one more predator among the farmers. You're going to have to protect her for a while longer, Trembor said. The father won't know immediately we have the remains, so he might send someone else to kill her. The buffalo smiled. Don't worry. I'll make sure nothing happens to her. She went back inside. Once in the car, with the box between the Trembor's feet, he looked to his wolf. It will be fine. We're leaving and not coming back. Marlot forced a smile. I wish I was that confident about it, but I told myself the same thing once, and yet here I am. And this concludes chapter 26 of A Familiar Death. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the book as well as the others in the series, they are available on all major e-retailer. If you want to support me in a different way, that's on my Patreon, where you can also get access to just about everything I've written. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.